started whenever it's 5, almost 5 after. It's supposed to start at 7. Cool.
Gentleman here.
Yeah, Jeff will get.
Oh, she's talking about it.
No, I know. Sorry, we have to maintain clearance. Why don't I help you find another spot in that chair, okay, sir? Here. No problem. One second. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go this way. Yeah.
It's the guy who's right here. You're my trip.
Yes, we will get one. Here, this way. Sorry. Jeff?
Welcome everyone. Good evening and welcome to the Thornhill Community Centre Library. Before we begin today's meeting, we would like to acknowledge the traditional lands as described by the Williams Treaties of 1923 that we are grateful to have the opportunity to gather on today. We acknowledge our presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations who have and continue to call this territory home, including the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It is wonderful to see so many of our fellow citizens here this evening to participate in this candidate meeting. The opportunity to openly share and discuss political issues is the essence of democracy. We are very pleased that the candidates of the Markham Thornhill riding proved so willing and able to be here this evening. Running for office requires incredible dedication and commitment. We applaud your service to our community. My name is Ben Hendricks, and I'm the chair of the Markham Public Library Board. I'll be your host and moderator this evening. It is a privilege for our organization to bring this event into our community. As a public library, we are committed to our civic role as a vibrant hub of community activity. We continually strive to ensure that our libraries are meeting places where citizens can come together to learn, to share information, and to connect with each other. And believe me, we will be doing all three of those things this evening. To give you an idea of the process tonight, I'm quickly going to introduce all of the candidates and provide an opportunity for each to make a brief opening statement on behalf of their candidacy and the federal party they represent. You will be able to ask the candidates questions through the cards provided. Staff will be walking around to collect them for you. After tonight's meeting, we'll be sharing your questions with all the candidates. If you wish to provide contact information, it will allow the candidates to get back to you. We are also streaming this meeting on Facebook and Twitter, and will be monitoring and accepting questions through those forums. We plan to provide some opportunities for open mic questions before each candidate makes a brief closing statement. Election campaigns offer opportunities to launch important, vigorous discussions about our future and the kind of country we want to be. As we move through the evening, we ask only that each of us conduct ourselves in a respectful manner so that all candidates, questions, and answers may be heard. Now, let's introduce the candidates in alphabetical order by last name. Mary Ng, Liberal candidate. Mary Ng was first elected. Mary Ng was first elected the Member of Parliament for Markham Thornhill in April 2017 and was appointed Minister of Small Business and Export Promotion in July of 2018. She is leading the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy, which seeks to double the amount of women entrepreneurs by 2025. Mary wants to foster the growth of Canadian innovation and the creation of good quality jobs. Peter Remedios, People's candidate. Peter, who has been happily married for 15 years, works for the City of Toronto in a policy and finance role. In addition to a law degree and an MBA, he is a certified public accountant. Peter decided to run for the People's Party because he feels real change is needed and that only the PPC offers policies that will secure a prosperous future for us. Paul Sabaz, NDP candidate. Paul Sabaz has fought on political campaigns to raise awareness about the struggles young people are facing today, from precarious employment to exorbitant housing costs and inaccessible home ownership. He wants to prevent more cuts to employment insurance, protect health care and pharmacare, address the housing crisis, and ensure that seniors can grow old with dignity and security. Christopher Williams, Green candidate. Christopher Williams is an award-winning teacher and head of personalized alternative education at Milliken Mills High School in Markham. He has worked to engage and unite community partners in meaningful projects while trying to ensure that there is a strong emphasis on local environmental action. Chris wants a healthier and more prosperous Canada for all Canadians. Alex Wan, Conservative candidate. Alex Wan has been the recipient of many awards, including Entrepreneur of the Year, Outstanding Business Achievement, Chinese Canadian Legend, and the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee. He has volunteered throughout his career and served on the board of directors for nonprofit organizations helping seniors and youth. Alex is an entrepreneur, York Region resident, family man, and community leader. Welcome everyone. Yeah, thank you. We are going to start the evening with opening remarks, and we can start with Peter.
So welcome, and thank you for being here. The People's Party has only been around for about 1 year, but in that time we've become the fastest growing political movement in Canadian history, with over 41,000 card-carrying members and hundreds of thousands of more supporters. The party is led by Maxime Bernier, who left the Conservative Party when it became painfully clear that on virtually all the major issues, Andrew Scheer and Justin Trudeau were virtually identical. Regrettably, the traditional alternatives, namely the Greens and the NDP, are not much different from the Liberals or the Conservatives. That's why the People's Party was created, to right what's wrong in Ottawa. And make no mistake, my friends, there is much that is currently wrong with our political system. When parties are not interested in balancing the budget and are willing to add to our $700 billion debt, on which we pay $54 million daily in interest payments alone, when over 40% of our income goes to various forms of taxes, and yet when it comes to health care, we have the longest wait times in the industrialized world, that's wrong. When all these parties support food cartels that force us to pay twice the price for various grocery items, that's wrong. When all these parties support giving billions to corrupt countries around the world instead of helping vulnerable Canadians first, that's wrong. When all these parties support putting a price on carbon, which will do virtually nothing for our environment, but certainly serves to make average Canadians poorer, that's wrong. When there's one rule for average Canadians and small businesses, and a separate rule and special treatment for companies like SNC-Lavalin, that's wrong. When only the very wealthy can get access to a party leader and its key people by attending fundraising dinners that cost $1,500 a plate, that's wrong. And when every 4 years all these parties come together and try to buy your vote with your money, that's wrong. I could go on, but I trust I've made my point. Ottawa needs a house cleaning, desperately, and I feel that only the People's Party is willing and able to do the job. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank all the candidates for attending. I'd like to thank the Markham Public Libraries for hosting the event. And yeah, I just, for me, running in this campaign was important because I thought my voice needed to be heard. I've lived in this riding for 26 years. I grew up here, I went to school here. All my friends are still here. In fact, many of them plan to vote for me. And, you know, I come from a working class background. My family are Armenians from Turkey. They immigrated here to seek a better life. And they did that for me. You know, my uncle ran a small business, and my father worked there as a dry cleaner. And one of the things I've noticed all throughout my life here is that it's difficult if you're from my background as a working class person. You know, one of the things I learned quite a few years ago when my father broke his leg and couldn't go to work anymore, and my uncle had long ago sold the business, was that working people don't get a fair share and a fair cut here in Canada. My father was fired by the new owner of the family, of my former family business, and he had to go on employment insurance. My family, you know, the rest of my family couldn't afford to keep the lights on. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My brother has a learning disability. So, and I was in school at the time, so I wondered, how am I going to, you know, care for my family? You know, and if it wasn't for programs like employment insurance, if it wasn't for OSAP, which allowed me to go to school, if it wasn't for OHIP, my father would have died from the blood clotting that the broken leg caused. We would have been homeless, and I don't know where we would be right now. And that's why I'm running for the NDP. This is the only party from its very inception that has fought for working people. It's the reason why we have Medicare in this country. It's the reason why we have the Canada Pension Plan. This party, to this day, has fought for people, and I wanted to be part of that. And I'm hoping I can earn your vote. And yeah, I think that's why it's important for me to be here, and I'm thankful for your eyes and ears today. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Can you hear me? All right, you have to excuse me. I'm not feeling at my best today, but I'm going to give it a shot. I am running for the Green Party. I am a teacher here in Markham, in this riding, Markham Thornhill, and I've been here for 27 years. I have been in just about every creek and backwater in Markham, rehabilitating and restoring all those creeks with my students over that time. And I've discovered a lot of things. One of them is the environment is a great way to re-engage students who really don't want to be in school. And those are the kids that I've been working with for the past 27 years. So we've been able to get in and give a lot back to Markham by improving the quality of life for habitat, by extending the life of biodiversity in the city, but also to re-engage the population here, the young population, to try and make better citizens out of those young people. And I was going to talk to you about one of the things we did today. So we go around and do these different environmental projects. We went out and we worked at an elementary school today on the other side of the riding, at Crawford Glen. And we were working with grade 4 students. And the grade 4 class was learning about how to switch technology. So move away from cars and start to use bicycles. And in that group, these kids are 9 years old. In that group, I was asking questions about what the biggest problems were that they thought they were going to face in their lives. And the first one that came up from a 9-year-old was climate change. All those kids know about climate change. They're all aware of the problems. I said, well, what causes climate change? And they talked about CO2 gases being released into the air and getting trapped and creating heat below the greenhouse effect and the temperature of the earth going up. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, all the kids started to identify the problems. All the 9-year-olds started to talk about ice melting, increased and more frequent coastal storms, habitat disappearing at a more rapid rate, ocean acidification. The kids that are 9 years old know about the problems that we're facing, and yet we don't seem to be acting. The current This party doesn't even believe that this is a problem. We have to address this. This is a very, very important opportunity for us to address climate change in a very serious way, and the Green Party of Canada is the only party that actually has a real set of targets with a real plan and policy in place to get us to where we need to be. And if we don't do it now, none of this other stuff is going to matter in 10 years. Thank you.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for the Thornhill Library who put this whole thing together. And thank you to you who actually take time to come to this gathering. My name is Alex Ewan. I'm your Conservative Party candidate for the Markham Thornhill riding. For this election, it means so much to so many people. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I came to Canada when I was 16. I finished my high school to my university. And subsequently, I worked a couple of years for actually 3 very smart Jewish partners for a software company, and thereafter I started my own computer software company. Actually, I have 2 grandsons. And there's one thing that a lot of people talk about different issues, talk about seniors. They could be just reading a paragraph or a page somewhere. I served a senior nursing home as a vice chair for a couple of years. I have a children's charity to help kids at risk for 18 years. And because of this children's charity, that actually got me into politics. Back in 2007 was John Tory who actually taught me into running in politics, and he said to me, Alex, I know you fundraise over $1 million and help 50,000 kids at risk, but I know you're extremely frustrated. You cannot help all those kids that you need to help. And he's right. Because as you know, for those who are involved in any charities, organizations, fundraising money is really, really tough. But I'll tell you, fund allocation is quadruple harder. You literally, I mean, shouldn't be, you're playing God. For example, you've got 10 kids that you need to help. You only can help 1, 2, maybe the 3rd one. And the rest, you cannot. That's wrong. That's actually get me many nights, and over the last 18 years, when I was doing this children's charity, I say to myself, this is not just a community responsibility, this is a government responsibility. We have to change the law, and we have to make sure all the children, all Canadians have the equal opportunity to do better. I also serve a number of different groups. For example, later on maybe the question about our law and order. I served the Toronto Police Consultative Member for coming up 4 years now. When I talk about different issues, I don't talk about it. I was in the system. I know our youth, I know our seniors, I know the healthcare system, and more importantly is I know what we need. I'm running in this riding. I'm seeking for your vote, and I want to be your MP, and I'm here to represent you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Salam, Leo, Ni hao, Salam, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Satriaka, Banakam, and Mabuhay. I want to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the peoples of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Mississaugas of the New Credit River First Nations. Thank you to everyone for joining us here this evening, from all of you who are in this room and throughout the library, to everyone who is in the family rooms across this riding who are watching through Facebook Live. Tonight, both the Markham Public Library and the Thornhill Community Centre Library are giving us another opportunity to talk about the issues that really matter to all of us in our community. In less than a week, you're all going to make a choice. This election is about you, the people who call Markham Thornhill home, and whether we will continue to move together forward or risk sliding backwards. Markham is home to talented and innovative people, and this access to such high quality talent attracts companies from around the world to our community, making this country's high-tech capital right here. As one of the most diverse ridings, I see firsthand the strength of diversity. We're a collection of different faiths, languages, traditions, and histories. Together, we make this community and indeed our country strong. And our Liberal government has been investing in you and in our children to ensure that communities like here in Markham Thornhill continue to thrive for generations to come. It's why we cut taxes for 18,000 hardworking Canadians right here in Markham Thornhill. It's why we put more money in the pockets of 17,500 families in our community through the Canada Child Benefit. A re-elected Liberal government will build on this progress with a plan to put more money in the pockets of parents, cut taxes again for middle-class Canadians, save business owners time and money, fight climate change, further support seniors in their retirement, keep our communities safe with strong gun control, invest in opportunities for our young people, and make housing more affordable. Our plan to invest in Canadians is working. 1 million jobs have been created, 54,000 in just last month alone, 900,000 people lifted out of poverty, a third of which are children, and one of the lowest unemployment rates in history. We know we can do more, we must do more, and the Liberal Party is the only party with a plan that is both ambitious and feasible. Unfortunately, this election, the opposition prefers to spread misinformation, stoke fear, and hide their plans to cut at Canadians' expense. As your member of Parliament, I will continue to work hard to create a prosperous, safe community where we all feel welcome and where we all feel we belong. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to go right into the questions. And we're going to start again with Peter for this one. It's all candidates. The question is, because of Doug Ford, I no longer have an OSAP grant to attend university. What will you do to support students like me?
So the fact of the matter is that when it comes to OSAP and other such grants, those are provincial responsibility. So I could, sit up here and tell you what you want to hear, which I'm sure the other parties will do, plenty of that. They'll throw more and more money at everything that you need, so education grants, healthcare grants, and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is we have to respect the jurisdiction of the provinces, and under our constitution, it is the responsibility of the provinces and their municipalities to assist and take responsibility for education, and as such, we leave it to them to do their job responsibly.
So, yes, it is a provincial jurisdiction, but there's many things that the federal government can do. One of the things that the NP has proposed is to freeze freeze interest on the loans, student loans. Right now we have one of the biggest student loan crises. People should be able to afford to get an education. You're going to hear a lot about the economy from everybody here, and I can tell you this right now, one of the strongest things that we need in the economy of the future is a well-educated workforce, and we're not going to do that if we don't have mechanisms to make sure education is affordable. Yes, the Ford government is cutting on education on every level, and the NDP and federal NDP government would do everything in its power to make sure that the provinces can and will invest in education.
Chris?
Okay, well for us the answer is quite simple actually. We want to reinvest in the system entirely and make tuition free for all Canadians to provide fully accessible university post-secondary education to all people who would like to take it. And we think we can tie that in with a lot of our other policies to make Canada a much stronger place by educating the youth and the youth of tomorrow. We are sure that we can create a much stronger Canada for everyone. So that's what we intend to do. We're going to tie the funding in federal and provincial transfers to the universities, and we're going to put new regulations on the universities so that some of that funding will be tied to measurables, so that the number of contacts for professors to students will result in some higher funding. But definitely the idea for us is free tuition, and it's fully costed in our platform. So it's one of the things that we've already run through the budget officer, and we've approved it.
Well, in Ontario, we have very unique situations. Ontario, we have 15 years of Ontario Liberal who has been governing Ontario, and which Catherine Wynne and Dr. McGee, dear Liberal, has dug a deep hole which DACA has to deal with. And that's one thing that we have to remind ourselves with Justin Trudeau Liberal, who has been in power for 4 years. He already dug a deep hole now, but of course not as deep as Ontario, and that's something that we have to remember. When a government is doing well in the federal level, Justin Trudeau has a deficit. When our economy is not doing well, of course, he will have even more deficit. So one thing is we have to remind ourselves with this question is that we can no longer, bottom line is we can no longer avoid another 4 more years of the Liberal government in federal. But again, I find it very interesting is why does the other party talk about DACA versus we should focus into what we have issues in the federal issues.
Well, this issue is a really important one, and speaking to so many young people in this riding, the anxiety about how they're going to afford their post-secondary education is a real one. So to build on the progress that we've made in the last term, where we have increased student grants by 50%, so that's probably about $3,000 for a student through the course, particularly students who need it through the course of their university education. A re-elected Liberal government is going to increase another 40% so that you can help these young people with tuition, so that affordability is something that is not out of the reach and they can get access to that post-secondary education and get some help along the way. We hear from young people about getting a job right away and the anxiety they feel about having to pay a loan, their student loan back right away. So a re-elected Liberal government is going to give you 2 years to find that great job coming out of university, and not just any job, so that you have 2 years to start working and then start paying your loan 2 years afterwards.
Great, thank you. And so some questions are directed at certain candidates. What we'll do with those questions, we'll start with that candidate, and then we'll allow it to go to all the other candidates. So this one is for Mary. What is your party going to do to address the less than full funding, 85%, of private sector defined benefit pensions, unlike index guaranteed public sector pensions?
Yeah, really good question. As I travel across the riding and have listened to so many workers and voters and people, affordability is something that families and people really are concerned about. This is something that that we have committed to making sure that we are helping Canadian families and throughout. I mean, in Markham Thornhill alone, 17,000 families, over 17,000 families are doing better because of the Canada Child Benefit. This is to deal with affordability and those very issues that really matter to the people here in Markham Thornhill. So whether it is being able to retire with respect, the changes that we've made to the Canada Pension Plan, and what we will do more of. These are real tangible actions that we're going to get at in a re-elected Liberal government.
Peter? What is your party going to do to address less than full funding, 85% of private sector defined benefit pensions, unlike your index guaranteed public sector pension?
So again, we feel that there needs to be a greater responsibility that's put on our public sector, particularly when it comes to financing and public taxation. So we do understand that there's a disparity between the public sector and the private sector, and the private sector in particular is hurting. So what we are planning to do, and this is our focus, is after we balance the budget, because again, there are no free lunches. Today's deficits are tomorrow's tax hikes, and that's the last thing any of us can afford. What we need to do is, after we balance those books, is actually give tax breaks to all Canadians. Like I said in my opening statement, most of our money, income that we generate, almost 40% of that, sometimes more, goes to various forms of taxes. So it's often one of your biggest expenses. So what we want to do is cut your taxes so there's more money in your pocket and you can spend that as you see fit, including savings.
Paul?
So seniors, they spent their whole entire lives making Canada better. They grew this country, But now families are seeing their loved ones face financial insecurity. You know, seniors, the rate of poverty among seniors has risen. The Liberals, you know, they've talked well, but you know, when it came to choosing between you know, workers and their pensions and rich corporations, they sided with Sears. Sears as shareholders instead of protecting workers, having $730 million of their pensions stolen from them. So, and the Conservatives, you know, they're not much better. Raising retirement to 76 years, retirement age is 76 years old. And their health cuts affect seniors the most. So we want to be able to create more affordable housing. We want to expand Medicare to cover prescription medication. These are the things that will benefit seniors day to day and make them have a healthier, better life.
Chris?
Yeah, my mom was a senior and we lost her last year. She was, you know, I thought she was living very close to the poverty line, even after working her whole career in education. So we saw her struggle and we tried to support her through that. The Green Party has a guaranteed livable income, fully costed as well, which I think is the bottom line for everyone, where, you know, senior or otherwise, we can provide all Canadians with a basic standard of living so that, you know, we can all live a good life here. And as Canadians, we live in one of the most prosperous economies in the world, one of the most prosperous countries in the world. That money is there. We've costed that into our platform. We should be able to take care of seniors, old people, the vulnerable, young people alike, and provide them with a very high standard of living.
Thanks. Alex?
Well, over the last 10, 11 months when I go canvas, I spoke with many houses, especially the seniors, and for those who have fixed income. Since Justin Trudeau come in power, they added more in our tax, in different ways of taxation. Our cost of living increases, especially with this year we have added a carbon tax. When you get gasoline or even buy grocery or buy a simple vegetable or fruit, it has went up so much more. If we do form the government as a Conservative Party, we want to scrap the carbon tax because it has added so much. It's just basically for Justin Trudeau Liberal tax and spend. And more importantly as well is that we want to remove the GST portion of our home heating, and also we want to put a universal tax cut across all working taxpayers.
Great. Thank you. So this is going to be a general one, so we'll start with Paul. Did the Conservative vote? Actually, you know what? This one's going to be directed at Alex. I'm going to start with Johnson. Do the Conservatives have any plans to change the age of legal consent for smoking marijuana?
Wow, this is a very good question. Personally, I don't understand why our government, just through the Liberal, wants to legalize recreational marijuana without a proper planning for how does that affect our public safety. Why 18 years old, why 19 years old, depends on the province. To me, a lot of scientific, a lot of doctors would tell you that when you smoke marijuana at under age of 25, your brain cells is going to hurt. It's going to hurt tremendously. We need our brain for development, we need it for study, we need it for work. How is it going to help us or hurt us? And bottom line is, why is our Prime Minister of Canada supposed to look after our health, supposed to look after our well-being, and it should not be hurting Canadians. Recreational marijuana is one thing, is not for everyone. As a matter of fact, we should, as a government, we should look into how is it going to affect our public safety and how we should regulate it.
So this is where I would disagree with my Conservative opponent here. Our government delivered on a promise to strictly regulate and to restrict access to cannabis for two reasons: to keep it better out of the hands of youth, and to protect and get the profits away from criminals. Canada has had some of the highest rates of use in the developed world, particularly among young people, and having a regime that strictly regulates this so that it protects our young people, and more importantly, it takes the profits away from criminals is absolutely essential. For 10 years, under the Conservatives and under Stephen Harper, you prioritize punishing youth over protecting them. So what we are going to do is make sure that we are strictly regulating the production and making sure that those who would provide this to young people, it is just simply not available.
Thank you. Peter?
So when it comes to recreational marijuana, we know that it is the law of the land. The current Liberal administration has brought it into effect, and our party really has no decision or agreement to make any amendments to the current legislation. So we feel that it's in the best interest of all to decide for themselves whether marijuana is something that they want to partake in, but the current law of the land is what it is, and we don't feel that any amendment is necessary. With that said, our party does allow for, and it actually encourages, private members' legislation and free votes. So if this is something that was of keen interest to this particular riding and there was a groundswell of support to bring amendments forward, including to reduce the age of consent, then that's something I would strongly consider to bring on behalf of the constituency.
So I don't think we should be going backwards on this issue. I think making sure recreational marijuana is available but also regulated is the appropriate way forward. As Mary said, it's better to keep this money out of the hands of criminals, and it's not. For us, it's not a question of making sure the regulations are super prohibitive or anything. It's just to make sure it's safe, and that, as she said, young people do not get their hands on it if they're not ready. Much like cigarettes, much like alcohol. We've done this for other substances, and we're doing it with marijuana. So.
Chris?
Yeah, so the Green Party has a concern with the black market. I think as a teacher, also I have a concern with seeing younger people having access to marijuana, which bothers me on a personal level. But the Green Party would definitely like to see the prices come down to get in, so that the black market can't control the market so much, because what's happening is that the kids are still buying it on the street. And when we talk about safe supply, you don't get safe supply out on the street. So the whole idea behind this was to control the supply to keep it safe. And yet, if the price is too high, you've got the black market still doing their business. So the Green Party would definitely like to see the prices come down and to change the way we're controlling how marijuana is grown right now. I mean, we have to change the regulations to allow it to be grown on a bigger scale so that it can supply the market, so that we don't have a black market.
This question actually goes back to the defined benefit pension, but it's a little more specific, so hopefully we can kind of touch on this pretty quickly. It says the NDP, we can start, actually we'll start with Paul on this one. The NDP and Green parties have stated that their platforms, in their platforms, they will take action on defined benefit pension security and super priority for pensioners in the case of company bankruptcy. So it's very specific. Is a Liberal and PC, what is it for Liberal and PC? No, we're going to start with Paul on this one.
Read the end of the question again.
It's directed to everybody. It's just saying that the NDP and Green parties have stated in their platforms.
Right, which we have.
And then what is the Liberal and
right, so they want to know what the Liberal position is.
Okay. Yeah. But you can speak to it.
Well, my position is there.
Okay. Paul, do you have anything to add?
The same. We protect pensions, and if a company does go bankrupt, we would do what we can to protect those pensions.
Perfect. Thank you. Alex?
Well, of course, once money is being invested, I believe the Conservative Party will actually look into and how to best protect for the investment. But more importantly, is we want to make sure that how any tax dollars money is being spent appropriately and not by the elected officials like folks in Ottawa. And the carbon tax and number of different tax and red tapes we have to remove those red tapes. For example, for the Liberal Party come in power, just since 2015, within the 4 years, we have 4,300 more red tapes has been added, or regulation has been added, and we need to remove just about 25% of those red tapes and make sure that these regulation is making it simple for CRA to look into.
Mary?
I'll just pick up there and get to the question. But around red tape reduction, particularly for small businesses, we did more in the last 4 years than the 10 years of the Stephen Harper Conservatives by cutting over 400 regulations for small businesses. So that is the record. That's where it stands. We will always stand up for workers in this country. We have worked tirelessly to be sure that the Canada Pension Plan and the way in which savings are attained for workers is something that we have created a historic agreement with all of the provinces in this first term. That is absolutely significant because it starts down the road of being able to protect those very pensions that our seniors will absolutely depend on in the age of retirement.
I don't think there's any question that it's incredibly unfair when you have workers who have sweated and toiled for many years, sometimes decades, only to find that when the company goes bankrupt or leaves to the U.S. or whatnot, their pension money is gone. We've seen it a number of times again, most recently with Sears Canada, for example. So there's no doubt that that's unfair and it needs to be looked at. Obviously, I know that there are bankruptcy and trustee laws on the books, so I'm not sure whether it's simply a question of enforcement or loopholes, but it's something we would certainly look for. And again, we need to protect our workers who have done their job and have nothing, who have nothing to show for it at the end of all that work, and especially when they put a lot of their own money into these funds themselves.
Thank you. Let's start with Green Party on this one. What will you do to decrease the deficit so that the next generation will not suffer due to high interest payments?
We have a 4-year plan to balance the budget. We have a lot of investments to make because we are planning to do some really big things. We're planning on changing Canadian society really, because our first and primary objective is to solve the climate problem, and we know that we have about a 10-year window according to the IPCC to get our numbers down so that we have a livable planet after that. There's big investments there, obviously. There are investments in infrastructure, there are investments in the way we live and the way we want to support that move. So, we're talking about investing in universal pharmacare. We're talking about free tuition, which I already mentioned. We're talking about the guaranteed livable income. We're talking about a restructuring of how we treat people in Canada. And we're also talking about balancing the budget within 4 years.
Well, first and foremost, we want to cut any corporate welfare, especially those corporate welfare money go to corporation that will just pay for the administrative and also that's not going to any specific research and development or innovations. We want to also lower on tax on the family social universal tax cut. More specifically, we want to make sure that money go into your pocket, because I believe all Canadians, you know best how you spend your money than anybody, best how to spend money, especially the Liberal government, if they do come back in power, and we'll be in big trouble. There's even more tax increase and carbon tax even will be much higher. We want to boost different ways where the Liberal government has removed, for example, the green tax credits for the public transit, the children's fitness credits, and also the RESP. We want to remove more other waste where the Liberal government has been wasted in a number of ways. For example, cutting the foreign.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I would say that that, Canada has a AAA credit rating, only second to Germany that is comparable. And right now, we have a level of debt that is low and is set to fall every year. That is the projection. Some people believe that we need to rush to balance the books at all costs and at the expense of Canadians. Andrew Scheer has put out a $53 billion plan that are made up of cuts. Just to give you some perspective about that, it's larger than the amount that the federal government is spending on healthcare this year. More than double the cost of the Canada Child Benefit, so that's families. What about what Canada has spent in benefits on seniors? That's what $53 billion is, and much of it is still not disclosed. So what is the Liberal plan? The Liberal plan is one that continues to invest in Canadians, continues to invest in you, and this plan is working. 1 million jobs have been created. Unemployment is at a record low. 900,000 people have been lifted out of poverty. That's investing in Canadians, and we will continue to do this.
So let's be very clear here that none of these parties, none of them, have committed to balancing the budget over the next term. As I said, our federal debt is over $700 billion. Again, $54 million we pay daily in interest rates. That's a complete waste of money. We're the only party that's committed to balancing the budget and eliminating our deficit. Like I said, there is no magic money tree at Parliament Hill that you can shake to pay for all these programs that they're promising you. It's simply an opportunity for them to try and buy your vote as they do every 4 years. We need to be responsible not only for current generations but our future generations. We've seen what happens in other jurisdictions when they just spend, and spend. We can't afford another Greece or other countries like that end up going bankrupt or introducing austerity measures. We need to be proactive now, and it's only the People's Party that's willing to do what it takes at this point in time.
Well,
So, first of all, I have to agree with Chris that there's a lot of crises that we need to take care of first. Climate, housing. We have a housing crisis in this country. There's places in this country, especially on First Nations communities, where people need to boil their water to be able to drink it. So we need to get those things fixed, and we need to get them fixed immediately. But, one of the biggest things is we have a deficit, sure, okay, but what do working people do when they have a deficit? They try to increase revenue. Right now, one of the biggest issues we have is that the extremely wealthy in this country do not pay their fair share. And it's not just individuals, it's corporations and companies as well. In the last 5 years, the big 5 banks avoided paying $23 billion in taxes. We're going to have a 1% wealth tax on folks with a net worth of $20 million or more. That will make a massive difference in revenue.
thank you, everyone. The next question, we will start with Alex. For politicians, interfering with the judicial process is illegal in Canada. But if 9,000 jobs are at stake, do you believe that Prime Minister Trudeau was right to interfere?
Well, first and foremost, doesn't matter Prime Minister or ordinary citizens, if you break the law, you go to jail. I think this is the time for us as a Canadian to tell or send a strong message. Do you want someone who actually, as alleged, break the law, and it doesn't matter for what reason. Doesn't matter for what reason. You break the law, you actually, no one is above the law. No one actually, doesn't matter what reason. Or you do a favor for your political friend and whatnot. You break the law, you go to jail. And that's a strong message we should share with our young generation. How is a young generation going to learn? When you break the law, you have exceptions, and then things will be all hunky-dory. This is wrong, and we should send a strong message. Canada, we all proud Canadians, and we should stand up tall, and doesn't matter who break the law, and they should be punished. And this is the time, on October 21st, send a strong message to the Liberal Party. You are not welcome back.
country and you serve, and your job is to serve everyone across the country. And in making decisions, some decisions are difficult to make, but they are the right decisions to make, particularly when you are talking about lives of Canadians, thousands of Canadians whose jobs are counting on decisions that are made. So fundamentally, this government, time and time again, has stood up for Canadians and will continue to stand up for Canadians, whether it is negotiating an agreement, a free trade agreement that stands up for our workers, from our steel tariffs, whether it is making sure that our families are doing better, cutting taxes for middle-class Canadians, making sure our seniors are better, making sure that our young people are flourishing. Decisions are important, and those that serve all Canadians is what actually matters.
So this is Canada. I came here as an immigrant with my family in part for Canadian values, and one of the primary Canadian values is the rule of law. And in the rule of law, it applies to everyone. We all have to be equal before the law and under the law. There is no special treatment. And that includes our Prime Minister. So no, I would not support any Prime Minister or any person breaking that law. Secondly, when you state, well, jobs were at risk, the fact of the matter is, jobs were not at risk. Let's be clear here. Let's be clear here. SNC-Lavalin themselves, the chair has said that no, they were not at risk to move the headquarters from Montreal at all. Those jobs that went to potentially government contracts would simply may have been lost, but if they would have been lost to other companies, that would have been an opportunity to bid on those contracts. So that is a complete falsehood, and it's not something that we can in any way accept or tolerate.
Paul?
So, I mean, I agree that nobody is above the law here in this country, but I find it rather amusing that the Conservatives feel like, they'd be any different on this issue. I mean, this is, it doesn't matter whether or not it's a conservative or liberal government. The reason why we have things like SNC-Lavalin having these scandals that happen is because we have too much, special interests have too much influence on our politics, especially on the two corporate parties. If it wasn't the Liberals, it'd be the Conservatives. Maybe it'd be a different company for the Conservatives. Maybe it'd be a fossil fuel company from Alberta. Who knows? The issue is that SNC-Lavalin had been a very supportive donor to the Liberal Party in the past, and favors are made, and the same could be said for the Conservatives for something else.
I would first of all draw your attention to the book I'm holding. So this is our party platform, and right away we're talking about honest, ethical, caring leadership, and we believe at the heart of our democratic system of government there's a relationship of trust and respect between all Canadians and the representatives that they elect, and we expect those representatives to act responsibly with integrity, with honesty, and with intelligence. And when they don't, then the trust and respect phrase, and of course democracy starts to falter. We feel that we have to protect those relationships with all our might. And as we've seen in other countries, when we have a few loose strands there, you can have the whole fabric of society unravel very quickly. We know that the governments of the past, the recent past, including Jean Chrétien with the sponsorship scandal, Stephen Harper had his Duffy affair, and now Justin Trudeau with the Lavalin affair. These are things that shine a bad light on Canadian politics, and we want to stop that from happening.
So we'll start Peter with you on this one. Actually, you know what? We'll start with that one, Mary, just because there's a question, but it's also directed kind of at the party, so we'll let her speak briefly if she wants to, and then the other parties can address it if that's okay. So the Trudeau and Liberals have told veterans that they are asking too much. Do others agree with this approach?
Veterans?
Yep.
I'm proud of the work that we have done for veterans. 10 years of cuts by the Stephen Harper governments to those men and women who have so diligently and who have given so much to serve us. We have restored funding. We've restored significant funding so that those very men and women who give to this country and who serve this country are treated with both respect and given the support that they need post-service. That is the record that we're very proud to stand on, and it is the work that we will continue to do in a re-elected Liberal government.
Peter?
So I'm very proud to say that while our party doesn't have dozens of different policies within its platform, it's only about 15, but 15 quality policies and issues. One of the primary ones is about veterans. And I have to say that one of the things that spurred me on to join the party and actually to run was the treatment of our current government against the veterans. If there's anyone who needs our help and needs to be served, it's our veterans, just for what they've done for us. And that's why I'm very proud to say that our party has a policy that was not only written for veterans, but is actually written by veterans, because no one knows better what they need than veterans themselves. And I'm very proud to say that it's only our party that's willing to go and return to a lifetime benefit for our veterans. So while the Liberal Party may not be willing to give what's needed, I'm very proud to say that the People's Party will do exactly that.
Oh?
So yes, of course, the service that veterans have given to Canada is incredible. I mean, I don't know. I personally do not, would not be able to make that potential sacrifice that these folks do. And one of the things I can say is a lot of the difficulties that they have right now are difficulties shared by many people in this country who have and haven't served. The NDP platform to expand Medicare to include prescription drugs and dental care, to make sure we have affordable housing, 500 units of affordable housing. These are things that will benefit everybody, including veterans, so we don't see them homeless, we don't see them suffering. And on top of that, the veterans are the biggest community that go through PTSD. Our plan to expand Medicare includes mental health coverage as well, and that's something that we need to get done.
Well, one of the things we know about veterans is the suicide rates are increasing in their community. Their PTSD, Paul pointed out a bunch of points that are really correct. And the Green Party really values the work and sacrifices of all the Canadian forces and our CMP veterans and active personnel, and we will ensure that veterans and their families are well cared for. We will provide support for all veterans, including disabled veterans, that allows them to live in dignity, and will ensure that service to veterans and their family members are fully integrated and funded. We'll also launch a national re-examination of veterans issues in December 2019 based on good faith engagement with military families and veterans, including issues related to pensions and benefits. The goal is to identify necessary reforms and changes to programs to better meet veterans' needs. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Alex?
Well, it's the current Liberal government that shamed veterans, saying that they're asking for too much. This is a shame to Canada, a shame to for those who actually serve Canada and risk their life, and that make us as a free country. For the Conservative Party, we want to guarantee that every veteran is treated with respect and is provided service in a timely manner. And we want to clear the current backlog of veteran benefit applications within 24 months. We want to clear a reliable dependent pension system that, unlike the Liberal status quo. And then we want to strengthen the transition service to support the discharge of retired Canadian Armed Force members. And also, of course, we want to put vital memorial projects like the National Memory for Canada's War in Afghanistan back on track. And also we want to provide service dog to Canadian veterans in the community.
Hong Kong has been in turmoil for the past 4 months. Do you support Hong Kong people's demand for freedom and democracy?
So, actually, the policy of the People's Party is that we really don't interfere in foreign jurisdictions and in foreign conflicts. So we understand that there is pros and cons to both sides, and we understand that that there needs to be self-determination from both sides. What I can say is, again, the principles of the People Party do align with what's going on in Hong Kong. We talk about freedom, we talk about personal responsibility, fairness, and democracy. So I understand that that's what's prompted the protests in Hong Kong, and quite frankly, I was very eager to realize that when I read the paper on the weekend, it said that over 10% of Canadians who are currently in Hong Kong and eligible to vote are actually looking to vote for the People's Party because of our policies and because of our principles, and I understand that that's what they're fighting for. Less authoritarian government and more freedom.
Thank you. Paul?
So, the fact that human rights are being trampled on in Hong Kong is a grave concern. The NDP has called for a full inquiry so that we understand what is happening. In addition to that, I mean, right now, the most important thing is to make sure peace and stability is returned to the region. So that's the biggest focus. But we need to, but the NDP is not a party that's going to abandon folks, and it's the human rights are extremely important to us. That's why we wouldn't be supportive of any country that does violate those human rights. So one of the reasons why we want to stop selling weapons to countries like Saudi Arabia, and that's we want to see a full inquiry. We want to understand what happens what's happening first.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
I think once again, I think the Green Party has a very similar stance here. Of course, what's happening over there to the people in Hong Kong is very worrisome, and we can see that historically there are issues there of control and nationalism. A foreign government can't just interfere in it. So we're concerned with the health and safety of the people on the ground, and we believe that investments must be made in places like the United Nations in order to up our participation through that group so that we can provide aid and help to people in need in Hong Kong who are struggling through this right now.
Thank you. Alex?
Well, I myself was born in Hong Kong, so I know the area quite well. But most importantly is right now we worry about the 300,000 Canadians who live in Hong Kong. Conservative Party always stand for the human rights, democratic, and also law and order. Now, Hong Kong, as we know, is since 1997 has returned to China, and subsequently is a place, one country, two systems. China has given Hong Kong with the 50 years of self-government rules and so forth. But for Canada, as a person who is running for public office, personally, my first concern is whether the human rights or all the rights are being compromised, or rather the safety of the 300,000 Chinese Canadians who live in the Hong Kong area.
Well, yes, there are 300,000 Canadians who are in Hong Kong, so of course we are monitoring this very seriously, because ultimately our concern will always be for Canadians who are in Hong Kong, and of course anywhere in the world. We have encouraged those who are traveling, or those who are in Hong Kong, Canadians who are in Hong Kong, to stay in touch and get registered with Global Affairs Canada, so that they can always get the up-to-date information that they need from the Canadian government. And what we share with Hong Kong is the respect for the rule of law. What we share is the ability for the people of Hong Kong to have the freedom to assemble and the freedom, to speak. What we do urge, however, is a de-escalation and that assembly and speech with non-violence. So we would urge the two sides to continue to work together because in doing so is where they may find a solution, and we hope that they do.
Great, thank you. Paul, we're going to start with you on this one. So it should be an interesting one. What's in it for seniors?
So, no, I'll reiterate what's in it for seniors on the NDP plan. I think our plan is by far one of the best when it comes to seniors. We are the fact that we want to expand Medicare to cover dental, to cover prescription drugs, to cover mental health care. And these are things that will radically change the lives of seniors. We want to be able to, again, protect the folks' pensions. Peter brought it up. In the case of seniors, this Liberal government did not protect those pensions, and those folks were out of a job and they were out of their finances. So an NDP government would fight for seniors every day, and they would make sure that they live in dignity in their final years. So that's one of our number one goals, and that's how we're going to go forward. And these programs would be universal, not just for seniors.
Paul, Chris?
Well, we know that a growing proportion of Canada is becoming older, and we're seeing more and more seniors, obviously. So the Green Party has a whole bunch of plans actually to make life more affordable for seniors, but to also provide them with some of the supports that Paul had mentioned. And in my travels around the riding and knocking on people's doors and speaking with older people, transportation is a really big topic that they keep bringing up. Accessible transportation that they can get to. So we have a plan for transportation. We also are talking about a national senior strategy, which would be a way to kind of take a big picture look at what's happening in Canada and to come up with some really dedicated plans, like ensuring that the Canada Pension Plan remains robust and adaptive to the changing needs and circumstances, because we know that over time, as the entire population ages, we're going to need to look at all the individual pieces and make sure they're robust for everyone.
Thanks, Chris. Alex?
Well, actually, I talked to a lot of seniors, and one of those say, "Hey, Alex, what if I want to go back to workforce?" Some of them, the community still need you to come back, and they say that could affect my GIS. So for the Conservative Party, we say is that your GIS is not going to be affected if you're on a low income. So we want to encourage people want to return to the workforce, so your GIS is not going to be touched. And secondly, is we want to increase your credits. We also want to remove the home energy, the GST portion. Last but not least is remove the Justin Trudeau Liberal carbon tax. Because of carbon tax, increase basically your daily living, your grocery and everything else that you have to spend on your own.
So after a lifetime of hard work, seniors deserve to worry less in their retirement. So I'm really pleased that a re-elected Liberal government will increase old age security by 10% for seniors when they turn 75. We've also brought back the age of retirement from 67, which the Conservatives put up to 65. But in this last 4 years, we have put forward greater access to home care, the palliative care, a national strategy for dementia, and we are going to implement a national pharmacare program. And I'm going to just go back to the $53 billion of cuts that the Conservatives have proposed and that Andrew Scheer has proposed. Because again, this is about what Canada spent on last year on benefits. So here in Markham Thornhill, what would you stop doing? Would you stop doing nutrition for healthy seniors? Would you stop doing seniors for volunteering? Would you stop doing programs like active healthy living for seniors? Would you stop doing nurturing seniors by participation? What would you stop doing? Because something is going to be on the table to cut. Which ones are they going to be?
Is that, so is this working?
Good? Microphone working?
let me double check with that. But in the meantime, so you can answer your question, I'm going to give you this one while I check on that. Sorry. No problem.
Great, so as I said at the beginning is that we need to get our financial house in order, but we're not going to do any cuts that affect vulnerable people, particularly seniors. So what we're looking to do is cut things that are unnecessary. For example, foreign handouts that we send to countries overseas that are completely unaccountable and simply end up in the hands of corrupt dictators. That money needs to be redirected towards vulnerable populations like seniors. We also want to do away with the food cartels that jack up the prices of our grocery bills, and that hits fixed income people, particularly seniors, the hardest. We also need to look at our healthcare system. Quite frankly, we have the highest wait care times in the world, and we need to look and model ourselves after superior healthcare systems that are out there, like in Sweden, Japan, and France. Lastly, we're the only party that is committed to scrapping the carbon tax and doing away with any federal carbon pricing scheme, because we know it simply drives up the cost for all Canadians. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Okay. So this marks the switch from the card questions to the audience questions. Just so everybody knows, this will all go to each candidate. If there's a contact on it, right, we'll scan them and send them to the candidates. And you could be contacted if your contact is on it, but they will get all these questions. So that's important that everyone knows that. After the open microphone, we'll do closing remarks. So I will turn it over. Who is managing the open mic? Who we got? There we go. And so, hands up if you'd like to ask a question. Okay.
Me? It's on? Well, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam. I'm a farmer in Markham. Some of you are present today. None of these candidates really refer to farmers or growing food. My questions are two. I'll start with the first one. Do you believe in the yes or no age does make difference in knowledge, experience, quality of life, effect, impact to run for federal, provincial, municipal, public office? Correct me if I am wrong or right. The second question is pensioner over 65 are getting the runaround for their benefit. Do you have a solid system idea to improve the system of the runaround firm way for their benefit and includes mine?
Okay, thank you. Does everybody understand what that's?
So what was the first question?
So the first question seemed to be around the age
Yes.
of becoming of being a candidate, of running for public office.
Yes.
Chris?
I'm not sure what the age is, to be honest. I'm just old. So I think I made the grade though. What are you asking? Do you think the age should be younger, Sam, or what do I think about?
I think what the question is that the knowledge and age does make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can answer that.
Yeah.
So I think so personally. I think experience is a factor that comes often with age. It comes with being out in the world for a long period of time, and I think that's really important for people to. I mean, I don't know what that cutoff line would be. I don't think it's fair to say it's a certain age, but I do think that for certain people, and it's pretty individual, you go through experiences, you learn a lot about life. If your mind is open, you can apply those learnings to running for public office and to representing and working for the people that you want to represent. And you could probably do a good job because you have had those experiences. Personally, I'm coming from experiences where I've been in Africa and I've traveled over the world in zones where there was fighting. And some extreme situations where I was actually thrown in jail over in Africa. And those types of things change your life and give you a different perspective, which helps you become a better leader.
Great. Thanks, Alex.
Well, the bottom line is not age or whatnot. The most important is what your knowledge that will train you, whether you're qualified, whether you're a better person for the job. To me, for example, someone who actually want to get a job, someone who want me to hire for a company, I always look for two things. Number one, of course, the background, the knowledge, and so forth. And second is, why do you want to apply for this job? Everybody wants a job. Everybody wants a paycheck. But more importantly is, why do you want this job? Where's your compassionate? To me, when I go to the door, many people say, you know, you all politicians are liars, cheaters, and so forth. And I look at them, I say, you know what? You're quite right. Many of them are just like that. And many of them, they just want your paycheck. They have no interest to serve the community. And it is time for you to vote for the people who actually care for the community and actually want to serve you, and not for your paycheck and not for your job.
Thank you. Mary?
So, around knowledge and age, you know, to seek elected office is really about service to all of the people in this room and all of the people in, you know, in this riding or in a ward and so forth. And I look around at my own colleagues across the caucus table, and they come from all around the world. They come from a diversity of experiences, and we have a mix of ages. And I think ultimately that diversity of experience that comes around to serve people is ultimately what is important. I think that public service is absolutely essential. And I think having that diversity of ages, of experiences, of where you're from, really does help, I think, to serve the people to whom you seek to serve. Around the question about pensioners and benefits.
It's okay, we'll get to that one afterwards.
Oh, okay.
No worries. Thank you. Peter?
So I'm certainly not in any way a proponent of age discrimination. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're old enough to vote, you should be old enough to run for office. So I would certainly encourage and welcome people of different ages to run. I think it's a great experience. And we do need those different energies and perspectives to come forward, because that's how we get to the truth and to get to optimal solutions. And I think when we have a greater diversity like that, that's only for the benefit of our riding. And ultimately, age, to my view, isn't really a key driver here. What matters really is the policies of the party, because ultimately that's what you're going to see put into effect, and that's what you're going to have to live by. So again, it's not so much age as it is the policies and the platform that a party brings forward that is either to the benefit of the riding or it's not.
Thank you. Paul?
So I think the quality of experience is important, and especially your life experience. I mean, the reason I'm running, and this is my first time running, so if I don't look too sharp, that's why. But the reason I'm running is because the people here are important to me. The people in this riding are important to me because they are my friends and family. As I said, I've lived here my whole life, and I have friends who can't afford their antidepressants every month. I have an aunt who had a heart attack because she skipped her pills to make them last longer. These are the stories that I have to live with because they're my life. And the reason I'm running for office is because I know we can do better. I know that we can expand healthcare to cover mental health care and prescription drugs. We can provide affordable housing. And my experience led me to be here today, asking for your vote.
That's a good question. And so the pension one, we'll go around the table quickly on this one. I mean, it seems to go along with the previous question that we asked about seniors, but it seems like there's a concern about the process of accessing these types of benefits. So if we could just speak quickly on that. Peter, you want to do that?
Sorry, what was the question?
The question was about the red tape, the runaround in Sandwich. So just accessing the pension and those programs and services.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with the way our government is structured. I think it has a lot to do with the bureaucracy and the duplication and the inefficiency that's in effect. Too often we have governments who are tripping over each other to get involved in various jurisdictions. And there needs to be a delineation as to who's responsible for what, so that when seniors do go in order to get health care or their pensions or so forth, it's a straightforward process. But right now you're absolutely right. There's a lot of red tape, there is a lot of runaround, and I think that's in large part because, again, so much overlap with different jurisdictions of government.
Thanks, Paul.
I think we do need to make things more streamlined, but for conservative parties like the People's Party or the Conservatives, streamlining means cuts, and that's the biggest. That is one of the biggest problems. When you hear things like streamlining, it means the pensions are being cut, probably. There's more efficient ways to do things, and our plan is for seniors to be able to access their pensions as soon as they can, because they do need it.
Thanks, Chris.
I guess, Sam, I would probably sit down and ask you what the problems were, because
That experience.
yes,
That's common
the
experience.
Yeah, but I would listen to what the problems were, and I would try to sort them out that way, because I think everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different. Some people may have no problems, and other people may be struggling with problems. So definitely, we're talking about a national senior strategy that we would put in place, and I think that would help to do all these things, streamline and put the right pieces in place to make things work better.
Alex?
Well, since the Liberal government come in power in 2015, which is just about 4 years now, they managed to create 4,300 more regulations. Like, we don't need any more. To do that, to actually file income tax or do anything. Your CRA actually, you basically need a certified accountant or certified a consultant, someone to actually help you. For the Conservative Party, what we do from the government, we want to remove 25% of those red tapes, because our life is already complicated. It's so complicated, Justin Trudeau wants to add 4% more. So income tax is a fancy name, but meaning it's more money out of your wallet. As far as I'm concerned, anybody touch my wallet, you're a bad boy.
Thanks. Mary?
So Sam, this is, you're right, we can always do better. And we can do better at providing services to Canadians and to seniors. At the outset, being able to provide adequacy, increase, benefits to the guaranteed income supplement or the old age security is part of it. But that's what members of Parliament's offices are for. I have enjoyed and I'm so privileged to actually be a member of Parliament for the riding of Markham Thornhill, but that's what we have a team in the office to do, to help you navigate through those services that might be difficult for Canadians to access, because getting on the website might not be something that is easy for them to do. So doing better is something we always need to strive to do, but the Member of Parliament's office is your customer service office. So you need, so I would encourage everyone here, that's what we're there to do. So come in, and we will help you navigate through sometimes what can be challenging circumstances or cases, and that's what we'll do.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Andrew. I lived in Markham all my life, and I'm a school teacher. And I want to ask all the candidates this a question. So forgive me, I came a little late, so forgive me if you answered already. So I consider myself a good driver. Now, I don't understand why I have to pay more in car insurance just because I live in Markham, whereas my friends are paying less for living in a different place in Ontario. So can you explain and maybe come up with some ideas to change that? And what are your plans? My second question is, what are your plans in supporting the York University Markham campus that we're trying to build here? I think it's a valuable investment, and it seems like our Ontario government doesn't feel like it's a valuable investment for our city. Thank you.
I don't know if you feel you can address both in one minute. If you do, we can do it that way, or we can split them like we did last time. What do you feel like? Okay, try to address them both in one.
So why don't I start with the latter one? You're absolutely right. Investing in our young people and providing them the post-secondary education that they need is what is going to make this country competitive. So I again draw, to a $53 billion plan to cut. I would say that my colleague here probably, I'm not sure where he would find money to be able to support our post-secondary students. So for us, one of the wonderful things that we've done here in Markham Thornhill with York University is help them with a piece of work that they're doing really, really good, and that is actually to develop some of the capabilities to help female entrepreneurs to partner up and to work with a great incubator and accelerator here like Venture Lab, so that there is a presence. And Y-Space is a great place to for startup students and companies to actually start here, and they're affiliated with York. So I think anything we can do to create that capability would be a good thing. And I guess we couldn't necessarily do the two.
No, I think that worked really well because we do have a lot of questions. So let's try to keep this one brief so we can see if we can get to more people. Peter?
So this goes back to what I've stated over and over again, that there's a delineation between responsibilities, that you have provincial responsibilities and you have federal responsibilities. And in the case of both your questions, both car insurance and with respect to post-secondary education, those are both provincial responsibilities. So, I'd love to sit here and say, I'll reduce your car insurance, we'll build a new campus. But, I have to be honest here, it's just something we can't do. It's a federal, I'm running for a federal government here. So, those questions might have been more fitting last year for the provincial election. And quite frankly, I don't understand either why car insurance varies so much, because you're right, I've literally moved like less than a few blocks and my insurance goes up. So it's a very good question, but it's really directed towards provincial governments.
Great, thanks. Paul?
So the crux of your question is why are they gouging you for moving to another place in the same riding? It's because governments are prioritizing corporate interests over people. We could have laws where that is not the case, but we continuously side with insurance companies. Peter's right that this is a provincial matter, but the Ontario NDP has put forward many proposals to essentially address the issues that you're talking about. In fact, our leader Jagmeet Singh, when he was an MPP, worked on that file. And so an NDP government would be a government that would prioritize people over profits, and would not allow, would do everything in its power to do that. And as for the York campus, we're supportive of the campus.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes, I don't have much further to add about car insurance because I think it is a provincial thing. But education is a really big part of our platform of the Green Party, and definitely that York campus needs support. It needs funding, and we would, we're putting $10 billion into education, so we're looking at trying to grow education right across the country, and that to me is really important because I see that a lot of our students could be attending school much more closely than having to travel and create a bigger carbon footprint as well. So it's good for everybody across the board when we build these big facilities really close to home, and it's good for innovation, as Mary pointed out. So thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Interesting you mentioned about York University. As a matter of fact, just about a month, maybe 2 months ago, I visited York University campus. A big tour along with MP Bob Ryan. The location is actually a good location. Yes, definitely all university, all different service facilities looking for government funding, federal, provincial, and municipal. But most importantly is right now, right at this moment, we have to stop the runaway train. The runaway train is our current sitting Liberal government keep on borrowing money, and you, me, and everybody across the country have to pay the interest that we borrow money. And I mean, in no time, we actually, for the whole year of the money that we pay, equates to the entire country's healthcare expense. So we can no longer afford this Liberal government to run another 4 more years. We have to stop it so we can put more money into social service.
Thanks, Alex. Question from the audience?
Hi, my name is Karma. The Trudeau Liberals called small business owners tax cheats. Most of small business provides 95% of jobs in Canada. As a former small business owner, I found that really insulting. So I'd like to ask Alex, what are the Conservatives going to do for small business? The other thing I'd like to ask.
We try to keep it to one if we can.
I heard everybody ask two.
I know.
One other quick one.
We have so many people waiting.
One other really quick one is I hear a lot of fear mongering here tonight from the Liberals. So I'd like to also ask Alex whether or not the Conservatives do intend, can you clarify for me if they do intend to cut health and social services?
Thank you.
Start with you, Alex.
Well, the only thing that we want to cut is cut the Liberal waste. More importantly is we want to make sure that our country is spending money for Canadians, not spending money across anywhere else we can no longer afford. For example, we want to cut $1.5 billion corporate welfare. And these corporate welfare are giving money to wealthy corporations, which no reason why they're actually touching on the taxpayers' money. We want to also cut any of the non-personal operating expense and also tax on the technology company, which we want to make sure that they pay the fair share. Small business, they are actually the majority of our business. We want to make sure that they look after our economy and also we have the money that they can sustain. We want to, against, as I say, want to reduce the federal regulation by 25% and make the operation more streamlined and more profitable.
So thank you for that question, but I'm going to pick up on something where you just where you ended, which is fear mongering. And this is such an important issue because earlier today I joined my Liberal colleagues to speak to the media to set the record straight on a particular matter. Because when I was traveling across this riding and talking to citizens, citizens were showing me pamphlets and social media content and advertisements that were taking place in restaurants and supermarkets, which were blatant lies targeted specifically only to the Chinese Canadian community. I was absolutely appalled. And I want to be very clear with people who are here, in particular Chinese Canadians who are here. The Liberal Party will not legalize hard drugs, and the Conservatives' claims are totally false. So this election is about a choice. We have presented a choice, but you take that choice away from millions of Canadians when the Conservatives decide that the only people they're going to target are Chinese Canadians, thinking that they're less intelligent or somehow they're less worthy of the truth, and that is simply wrong.
Thank you. Peter?
So your question was with respect to small businesses, and this is something that's of true importance to me because my wife is in fact a small business owner. And you're right, things need to be done to improve the productivity and economic prosperity of this country, particularly since small businesses are the economic engine of this country. So our party is the only one that is committed to eliminating all corporate welfare, not simply reviewing to potentially trim some corporate welfare, all corporate welfare, because it's not fair that large multinationals get breaks and bailouts while the small businesses don't. Secondly, we're the only party that's committed to reducing the corporate income tax rate from 15% to 10% over a number of years, phasing that in to again unleash the productivity of small businesses. Third, we're also committed to eventually, in time, abolishing all capital gains tax, because we again see that that's a tax on productivity, and we want small business owners to reinvest in their businesses, which in turn means more jobs, more investment, and greater prosperity.
Thank you. Paul?
So, I mean, again, this is personal for me because my family once had a small business. So I understand the unique difficulties of running a small business just from the fact that I grew up, in one. And that said, we need more support for small businesses. Most of the support any government, liberal or conservative, have given are to large businesses. And I know you may have heard something different here today, but conservative governments have been in power before, and they've always chosen big business above small business. And the NDP again would make different choices that will benefit average everyday people, and when it comes to business, would benefit small business as well.
So we see a small business too as the economic engine of the country, and we definitely wouldn't want to do anything to hurt small business. I owned a small business, so I do have some experience there as well. I know how hard it is when you're running a business to make everything work and keep everything floating at the same time. We're really trying to maintain at this point the taxation on small business, not to have anything go up, not to raise anything. No new taxes on citizens. We made a lot of promises. If you were listening to me tonight, we were talking about a lot of things. Definitely we're going to raise the corporate tax. That's a big thing for us. So we're looking at moving the corporate tax rate from 15 to 21% to fall in line with what's happening in the US. But that will not affect small business. We will do everything possible to encourage small business as we move to something we haven't talked about, an AI approach. So as we head to the future, there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening, and we want to support that all the way.
Wonderful, thank you. Unfortunately, the library is closing in 50 minutes, so we do need to move on to the closing remarks. If anybody has any remaining questions, please write them down. And again, make sure you leave your contact there so that they can respond to you. And we will make sure that all those questions get to them. Again, my apologies, we could be here for a long time if we tried to take more questions, but we've run out of time because they do have 2.5 minutes each to give closing remarks. So I'd like to be able to give them that time so you can all hear from them. Peter, I'd like to start with closing remarks.
So thank you. I think it's pretty clear that I'm not a politician, and quite frankly, I never aspired to be one. I happily work full-time, and I'm only now running because I've been spending my own time and money because I love my country deeply, and I feel that major change is necessary. And I'm not the only one. In the past, often 40% of all Canadian citizens have chosen not to vote. 40%. And when we ask them why, the common refrain is, well, what's the point? All the parties are all the same, so why bother? And you know what? They're right. Every 4 years, we flip between the Liberals and the Conservatives. It's like switching back and forth between Rogers and Bell. You know, they may be different companies, but no matter which provider you're with, you're going to pay exorbitant prices and get poor customer service. It's time to end the liberal-conservative duopoly that has ruled over us for over 150 years. It's time for a government that puts the best interests of average Canadians first. Only the PPC will, 1, balance the budget next term without cutting necessary benefits or services. 2, put an end to food cartels that drive up our grocery bills. 3, eliminate all corporate welfare. 4, except for humanitarian aid, stop foreign handouts and instead help Canadians in need here first. 5, scrap the carbon tax and do not impose a federal carbon pricing scheme. 6, secure our borders and return to responsible and sustainable immigration levels. 7, build pipelines to create jobs and to reduce our reliance on dirty oil from foreign countries like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. And 8, after balancing the budget, begin cutting taxes so that more of your hard-earned money stays with you instead of in the pockets of our political masters. In summary, it's time for a government for the people, by the people. And that's why I'm running for the People's Party of Canada, and I hope you at least consider standing beside me at the voting booth. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you again for everybody for coming, all the candidates for coming, for the library for hosting the event. Again, we have an opportunity on Monday to choose a government that will prioritize people over profits, that will prioritize working people over the wealthy, and that's what the NDP is providing. Our platform, again, to expand Medicare to cover dental and prescription drugs, to make sure we have 500,000 units of affordable housing, to attack climate change, to get that done. That's one of the biggest issues of our time going forward. We can do all that if we have a government as us over the wealthy corporations. And another thing is, you know, we have a choice every year, but we want to be able to have, the NDP has prioritized a commitment, a true commitment to electoral reform. We come here every year, and one of the biggest issues is we have 5 candidates here, and usually only 2 of them are the big 2. And this is an issue. So many people vote for other parties, and one of the biggest issues is that our vote, many of us feel that our vote doesn't count. We want to make sure every single vote counts. And we can do that if we elect an NDP representative here. That way we can, once we get that done, we can actually democratically together, all of us as Canadians, work towards the solutions that we need. And we can compromise with other parties and actually get things done like they do in other countries. So that's what we want to do. We want to elect a government that prioritizes people, prioritizes democracy, and can get the things that we need done in the proper time that it needs to be done. So, thank you so much.
Chris?
All right, thank you. So I started off with a little story about being with the children today, and I kind of want to pick that up again because we really didn't ever get back to talking much more about climate change. And for me and for the Greens, climate change is where we have to start. If we don't address this in a very, very serious way right now and moving forward in the next 10 years, then this stuff will become moot. And I know that it's hard for some people to relate to, and that it seems like it's a long way off, but this is an existential crisis that we're facing, and we're facing it right now. We need to do this first, and we need to do it seriously. We can't use targets that were set 10, 15 years ago that are too low. And the scientists, the top scientists in the world that are climate scientists that work for the UN, have come right out and said, these targets are way too low. You won't achieve what we need to achieve in the next 10 years if you keep following these targets, and we have not changed the targets. The Liberals are holding on to Stephen Harper's targets, a 30% reduction over 2005 levels of emission by 2030. That's not enough. The Green Party is pushing for 60% reduction over the numbers by 2030. We have to at least get halfway to the point of ending the GHG emissions. By that point, we want to get to net zero. Even the Liberals have said net zero by 2050, but they have no plan to get there, and that's really disappointing. I voted for the Liberals in the last election. I was so disappointed. I wanted them to solve this problem. At least I wanted to see some progress. We've made almost no progress. If you look at what's happened over the last few years, since these targets were put in place, we've made a 2% reduction, if we're lucky, a 2% reduction over that time in the amount of greenhouse gases that we're emitting. That's not acceptable. We need, this is the crisis of our time, ladies and gentlemen. We must act on this crisis. And if we are the party to do that, our plan is very thorough. We'll cut all corporate subsidies. All the subsidies that are going to oil and gas right now, we'll get rid of. We'll make sure that that pipeline does not get built, that the Liberals bought with our taxpayer money. That's ridiculous. We will end that. We will take that money that was going to be spent there and we'll invest it in climate strategies to solve the problem so we can live in a better world on this planet in Canada and provide jobs to everybody. Thank you.
Well, first I want to thank the library and everyone who's volunteered volunteered to make this happen. Again, my name is Alex Yuan. I'm your federal Conservative Party candidate running in this riding. With the 10, 11 months I've been canvassing in this area, a lot of people have a few common issues. Number one is they say they can no longer afford Justin Trudeau as our Prime Minister. The Liberal Party does know how to tax and spend with a carbon tax. You know, many of them they say they can no longer pay any more tax. We want to use green technology instead of taxing to help our environment. And also many houses and business has been broken into, business being robbed, and also almost every day we have gunshots. And people saying that, you know, there's so many gun violence and so forth. We need to make sure that those people who are gang members commit serious crime, they have, number one, no more bail, and also tougher sentencing. It's the Liberal Party who lightened the sentence, and that's what happened with our community. I've been in Canada for 40-some years. Never seen any of our community be turning upside down. Legalizing recreational marijuana is a wrong message to our young generations. They need the brain to study, and even in the adults. So we need to focus on our work. Once you damage your health, you cannot work, you cannot study, forget about you can even play. Last year, 2018, the Liberal Party of Canada, they have a convention at the Halifax. They even have a motion on the floor to want to, I'm going to try to find the right word, to decriminalize all hard drugs. Now, again, if we do not want another Liberal government come in power, and then suddenly we say, hey, you know, how come we have recreational marijuana being legalized? And by the way, if they do come back, will they, and when will they ever going to decriminalize all other drugs? Just imagine, this will hurt your family and our community. Vote for the Conservative Party. We can no longer afford this Liberal government. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary?
Thank you. So I want to thank you again for joining us this evening. Tonight, you have heard from all of us here, our party's plans and our platforms, but what I want to focus on right now, and what I've always wanted to focus on, is you. It's an honor to have served as your member of Parliament, advocating for you in Ottawa, while delivering results for you right here in Markham Thornhill. Whether it's breaking bread at the Chabad, to breaking fast at the Iftar, from mosaic interfaith walks to the Taste of Asia Festival, celebrating Vaisakhi and Diwali, Taekwondo, Chinese New Year's, and so much more. We know that our community and communities across Canada can be greater than the sum of its parts. It's why I can say to you how proud I am to work hard for you and to be a part of a Liberal government that unites instead of divides, that builds instead of breaks, that moves forward instead of falling behind. A government that practices positive politics and not the politics of fear. A government that works for all Canadians and not just the few. Our government was elected on a plan to ensure that all Canadians have a real and fair chance to succeed. And right here in Markham Thornhill, we're better off today because the Liberal government is investing in us and investing in our children's future. Let me be clear. We know the types of cuts that Conservatives make in the name of austerity. Their cuts hurt seniors, they hurt youth, they hurt newcomers, they hurt the most vulnerable, and they hurt our economy. Andrew Scheer's $53 billion worth of cuts is 4 times larger than Doug Ford's in Ontario. It means critical infrastructure projects across the country cancelled. It means jobs lost, public services gone, and possibly the most alarming thing is that there is still $14 billion worth of cuts that the Conservatives have not yet explained. So who will these hidden cuts hurt the most? Our families, our students, our seniors, the environment. We can't take that chance. If you want to stop the Conservative cuts, I would ask you to elect a progressive government, not a progressive opposition. We have done so much since 2015, but we know that there is so much more to do. And only a strong Liberal Party of Canada, under the strong leadership of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has a positive plan to continue to strengthen our economy, support our seniors, create opportunities for our young people, fight climate change, grow the middle class, and create a Canada that works for everyone who chooses to call this country home.
Very.
I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I just want to say that tonight's all candidates meeting has been very informative. As a member of the Markham Public Library Board, I'm truly thankful for everyone who came out this evening. Of course, a big thank you to all candidates for coming out tonight and participating in this valuable democratic exercise. We are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and experiences with the residents
May
of
I have your
Markham
attention,
Thornhill.
please? The library is now closed. Meeting will open tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Thank you, and we hope to see you soon.
So you can always come in tomorrow morning. Anyways, Markham Public Library is a community connector, fostering collaboration and advancing community priorities. We are committed to our civic role and providing our community with opportunities to contribute their expertise and connect with others. We are a community hub where citizens can come together to learn, imagine, create, and grow. I think we have lived up to that tonight. Thank you for sharing your time and experience with us, and don't forget to go out and vote October 21st.
Perfect, right?